Just to give you a current update, the governor declared a state of emergency on Saturday, and I will tell you that it's been much of a nail biter since that date watching these two storms. It certainly makes one very nervous when you've got two storms, not one, but two storms to come as close as these storms did to the state of Mississippi in hurricane season. So far, this season has lived up to what the Hurricane Prediction Center has said with the number of storms, and we're not over yet. We still have got probably what would amount to about 2 months left in this hurricane season. Our hearts go out to the folks in Louisiana and Texas that are affected by this storm track. It does appear that the track is certainly constant and slated to make landfall at or near a Category 4 hurricane sometime late tonight or early in the morning. And as you're aware, if you've been keeping up with the news, they are frantically making preparations for this very dangerous storm to make landfall. Mississippi is certainly not out of the woods. We will be experiencing effects from this storm. Currently under storm watch is Hancock County and Harrison counties. Spoke with those gentlemen today and have been throughout this period of time, and they're expecting storm surges 2 to 4 feet, and in some areas it could get as much as 6 feet. We are expecting a lot of rainfall from the storm, and currently Amite, Pike, and Wilkinson County are under a flash flood watch. And then again, just a reminder about the storm surge. We can expect this storm system as it moves across the state of Louisiana and Texas and into the state of Arkansas to bring with it in the rain bands and the wind bands a lot of effects to Mississippi. One of the things I just want to bring your point to, and as a reminder, was brought attention to me today, this storm track has followed very closely, as did Hurricane Rita, which preceded or followed very closely Hurricane Katrina back in 2005. That storm, Rita, followed very nearly this very same storm track, and we experienced one of the largest tornadic outbreaks that we had on that day. So just a reminder, we could experience tornadoes in addition to the rainfall and the wind. So we certainly need to remain vigilant throughout this period of time. We do still have some shelters open across the state. In Hancock County, their Kiln Safe Room remains open at this time. Marion County continues to have one shelter open, and then there is one shelter still open in Jeff Davis County. If you recall, they did have some flash flooding there, and we did have some folks that were displaced to those shelters during that period of time as a result of Marco. We have assisted today a family from Louisiana that evacuated from the affected areas in Louisiana, and we'll continue to support our sisters and brothers as we need to help them through this difficult time. Along those lines, support that we have sent out to the state of Louisiana, we deployed just about an hour ago a search and rescue team. They'll be going to stage in Baton Rouge, Louisiana to assist with high water and search and rescue as needed. I just was made aware of before I came in to this press conference that the state of Louisiana had requested through EMAC heavy lift aviation support through our National Guard. And it's my understanding we'll be supporting that and deploying those resources when it is safe to do so. And then finally, we've been working to assist the state of Louisiana with canine supported teams to augment their search and rescue, and we're working to assist to resource those right now. Just one final note, just to remind everyone, this has been a very stressful situation for a lot of folks with a storm this strong. I cannot emphasize enough for the folks in Mississippi to pay attention to the weather. It is not over for us. Just because this storm has moved to our west and making landfall where it is, we will have effects in the state of Mississippi for as late as even into Friday. So you need to pay attention and watch to the warnings that come out and be prepared to take cover when necessary for whatever threat may come about. Before we open the floor up for questions, I'd like to turn the podium over for just a second to our FEMA Coordinating Officer, Mr. Brett Howard.
Thank you, Director. Ladies and gentlemen, pleasure to be here. I hate it's under these circumstances. Like the Director said, I'm Brett Howard. I've been appointed as Federal Coordinating Officer for this event, this potential disaster for the state of Mississippi. I'm here with the Region 4 team. We have our Region 4 IMAT team on the ground here. We've been here since Monday. Governor Reeves and through the Emergency Management Agency here requested a presidential declaration pre-landfall back when on Sunday, when the storm was really focused and pointed on Mississippi. He received that request for declaration. It was granted Sunday night. The FEMA team rolled in Monday morning, and we've been coordinating with the state of Mississippi, with Mississippi EMA here since then, getting ready, standing up, posturing for any needed resources they may have. Their declaration it's a limited one. It was mainly for the preparation for sheltering for the storm, for the landfall of the oncoming tropical storm, now major hurricane, to cover the evacuation and shelter support that would be needed here in Mississippi. I want to reiterate what the director said. Everyone needs to continue to be very vigilant in their activities on monitoring the storm. You don't know what's going to happen. There's too much that can still go on. It's not a landfall to Mississippi, but there will be effects from this hurricane, this major hurricane, felt throughout Mississippi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Brett. At this time, I'm happy to open up for questions.
I was going to ask, does the state have any contracts with any hotels for sheltering?
It's a good question. We currently right now do not have any contracts. You're speaking of non-congregate sheltering, and you probably heard on the news with Louisiana and Florida is using that. We are in the process of shoring that up. That's something that we've been working on throughout this entire COVID period because of the issues with congregate shelters. We don't currently have any contracts, but we are working and talking with hotels, and we were prepared to instigate a field expedient non-congregate shelter plan should it had made landfall on Mississippi.
Dr. Michelle, I know you mentioned it, but can you talk about what resources we're sending currently into the track of the hurricane? Are we doing mutual aid?
Well, so first of all, we're deploying those assets when it's safe to do so. With regard to the search and rescue assets, they are on the road now. They're going to where they believe to be a safe area in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They will get there. They will take shelter until the storm subsides and it's safe to move around, and then they will be deployed as necessary by the state of Louisiana's emergency management. Same thing would apply to the rotary wing assets with the National Guard. They're poised. They've been preparing for this and having discussions for the last few days, and when it's safe to do so and deploy those assets, and they will go in and go where they need to be.
Director Michelle, when it comes to tornadoes that you mentioned earlier, possible tornadoes popping up throughout the state, what do you anticipate there, and where in the state would you be the most concerned about?
Yeah, well, you know, tornadoes are it's very difficult for us to pinpoint where those might be. I mean, if we go back and look at what happened with Rita, and I mean, I was amazed at just almost how identical that storm track is. There was a large concentration of tornadic activity in the Jackson metro area, which is right where we are. But then there were spin-off tornadoes all throughout the state. So if you've seen this track, it's very strange. It almost encircles the state of Mississippi, where it came from across the Atlantic into the Caribbean basin and then moved up across Louisiana. It's going to make a very hard right turn and head abruptly off to the east, just to the north of us. So we're going to have wind bands pretty much, you know, encircling the state, and rain bands. So those tornadoes and spinoffs could be anywhere, but the National Weather Service does a good job of helping us pinpoint that, so we can at least be looking in those areas, and that's really the best we can do right now, is just remain vigilant. Yes, sir.
Are you expecting a large influx of evacuees, and how are you guys planning to house those evacuees if you do?
We're not expecting a large influx. We've had good communications with the state of Louisiana. I've spoken with them every day this week. They have been, and much like the question about the non-congregate shelters early on, you know, we've been talking about this with our partners and our counterparts. Their messaging has been to evacuate out of the areas. Louisiana is providing transportation in a lot of areas with the non-congregate sheltering that they're doing, so they are in a lot of ways channeling where those evacuees go in their state. You know, this family that was displaced in Mississippi that we assisted, I think that's going to be more of the exception than the norm. But again, if we do get folks from Louisiana or wherever that may be, we will do our best to help them and get them taken care of.
Commercial dispatch.
Stella Greer. I'm a reporter with the Commercial Dispatch in Columbus, Mississippi. My question is, what is it going to look like to open up shelters in the context of the pandemic? How do you handle the case if a shelter is at its maximum capacity and has to take in more evacuees? And what are some of your concerns? Thank you.
Yeah. Yep, so as has been talked about throughout this year with other disasters we had, COVID throws in a very unique challenge when you're talking about shelters in the traditional way that we've sheltered folks. Fortunately, unfortunately, if you will, we've had some experience in dealing with COVID now, so it's becoming a little more norm with the PPE and the restrictions that are there. So it's not anything that we haven't been working with for the months. But to your point, what it does require us to do in a congregate sheltering is it requires us to have more facilities. In the case of the 3 shelters that are open right now, the population has been low, so that's been good because we've been talking about that throughout the year for people to avoid those congregate shelters and seek other means if they can. But the requirements would mean that we would have less people that we could put into a congregate shelter, which means in some cases, had this storm made landfall in Mississippi, we'd been looking at having to open more of those shelters, but we had already been working with trying to put people in non-congregate situations as well. PPE has been staffed in all these counties, so they have it to staff the congregate shelters, should that been the case. But it does pose a challenge, and but we were prepared to work that to ensure that people had a safe place to go.
So in the northern-west part of the state, the hurricane's trajectory is predicted to go across that, and would prolonged rain cause any other effects other than just possible tornadoes or up there in that northwest corner?
Yeah, absolutely. Flash flooding, of course, and when this track is kind of been weird how it's really avoided, even coming or touching the state of Mississippi. But yes, and not only that, but the rain that's happening with this heavy convection system that was kind of lording off there that had broke away from Marco caused a lot of rain that we've been experiencing up in the north. So you can expect that rain that we even get north of Mississippi over the course of the next 6 to 7 days, we'll be experiencing effects there too. So some of the rivers, tributaries, we could expect to be swollen over the course of the next week. The flash flooding is going to be a factor and a risk factor as well as this storm pushes through.
What kind of storm surge are we looking at on the coast? I know you mentioned something about that, but just to reiterate.
Yeah, so Hancock County is going to be the one that more than likely will be affected the most because it's the lower areas. That storm surge watch does roll into Harrison County as well. I spoke with Brian Adams down in Hancock County before I came into this, and he's projected on the watch area to be 2 to 4 foot. He's expecting, based on his own personal experience, it could be as high as 6 foot. So that's what they're preparing for, a worst case scenario, and then that would also transcend even into parts of Harrison County.
And could you talk just a little bit about the area along the Mississippi River, the Delta and on down, and how that'll be affected by the rain and the winds in this country?
Yep. So we got a report earlier today from the Army Corps of Engineers about the rain and where we had there. They're not anticipating any major issues. There hasn't been any issues up until now. But obviously, as we look beyond, they're forecasting, no major effects, even with the rainfall that they're projecting to come out of the upper valleys. But it is something that we have to watch because there's a second, third order effect to everything. And even though we've been focused on COVID in other areas, we still have to keep our eyes on that lower Yazoo River basin there and the backwater area that we dealt with last year.